8th meetup. For those of you who don't know us, we are Riga TechGirls, Latvia's first community, and we are all about educating and inspiring women about technology. So we are a group of women. We volunteer our time. We host meetups like this where we bring in interesting women working in technology to come speak, where you can hear and learn a lot of new things. We also have workshops where you can learn introductory coding skills, digital skills, and we also do sometimes some children's events. So today I will give an intro to what is emerging technology, why should women care about it, and then we're very blessed and honored to have a speaker, Susan Graham from the UK. She flew here yesterday, and she will be speaking. And then we have Benita Kuliakovsky, who will be speaking. And then we have announcements. And so anyone who has any announcements, please feel free to come and share. And then afterwards, networking, meet up with each other, talk, and share ideas about how you're going to create the future. So today we'll talk about emerging technologies, a field I personally find very fascinating because these are technologies that are new, developing. They're people, we hear about them, but they're not mainstream yet. But they have a lot of potential and will radically transform our entire world. And so it's important for us to see where the world is heading, what technologies will be impacting our future, and how we can, see the opportunities in it. So one thing about emerging technology is technology is exponential. So growth is a lot faster than human. We think linearly, and technology grows exponentially. So one example of linear versus exponential is if you were to take 3 steps, a meter, you would walk for 30 meters. That's linear. But if you were to take 30 exponential steps, 1 meter stride, you'll be able to travel the world 26 times. Another example is if you take 30 steps, you'll cross the room. If linear steps, and 30 exponential steps, 29 you go to the moon, and 30 back. So this is why we sometimes don't really notice how fast technology can grow. So this is the 6 Ds of exponentials. This is from Peter Diamandis. He's the founder of X Prize. He has a couple of books I highly recommend. And it's why technology is exponential. So the first is digitalization. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. I don't usually give talks. This is like kind of one of my big fears in life, but I'm pushing through it.
Awesome.
Because the brain is plastic, so I know 50 talks, and then it'll be easy. But I just feel like it's so important to kind of confront our fears. So it's always been one of my big fears, and I don't do it but to achieve my goals in life, I know this is something that I just have to. So I hope I don't seem too nervous. But anyway, 6 Ds of exponentials. The first is digitalization. So everything is increasingly becoming digital, and that's physical. We can digitize everything. And then when things are digitized, it conforms to information technology, so it grows. There's Moore's law. Computing power doubles. It doubles every 2 years. And the next thing is deception. So deception is why a lot of people dismiss emerging technology, because deception in the beginning, if you looked at the graph, you'll see that linear and exponential kind of goes around. It's a bit flat. And so it looks very deceptive. It looks like, things haven't changed in 30 years. Nothing's going to really change in the next 5. But then exponential technology will really take off. So in the beginning, a lot of technology has kinks, and this is why people don't really pay attention. So for example, we have self-driving cars, and this is going to take over everything. There will be no more people drivers driving for a living. But at the moment, everyone's like, well, no, the cars will never be able to drive on certain roads and this and that. Oh, what happened? Something happened. All right, Inta, could you help? So anyways, I will just continue. So the deceptive part is that we dismiss certain technologies because they're not perfect in the beginning. But while everyone else is dismissing them, similar to the internet, where most people are like, what's so special about the internet? The technologies are improving, and then they go to the next stage of disruption. So when they finally are refined, they are able to completely disrupt and transform entire industries. And most people are taken by surprise because they think things will always happen as they have for the past decade. And but really smart people will understand that about technology, so they won't be put off by this technology that's not so perfect, because they can see these potentials. And this is one thing I think is great for women to have to get into these emerging technology fields, is because these are the industries that will be disrupting the next 2 decades. And it'll be similar to the internet explosion, but it's going to be even more radical. The next step is demonetization. This is when basically you don't have to pay anymore for a good. So for example, film. We now have digital photography. Nobody is going around and buying film anymore. Very few people are. And so, you can just take photos. And before, everyone had to, go and buy film and develop it. So that's a whole market that's lost. Dematerialization is the next. This is when physical tools become apps. So for example, once upon a time, people still can, but you don't have to buy a camera. But before, if you wanted photos, you had to buy a camera and a phone separately. And now we can combine. We have a phone. We can take and we can do a lot of things. So a lot of things have been dematerialized, and that will continue. The next step is democratization. Technology drives down the price to the point where soon it becomes very affordable for the masses. So even now, 3D printers are kind of expensive, but within 5 to 10 years, it will be very cheap. Everyone will have 3D printers, and that will just be something that, and also like VR. Right now, VR is something that only specialists have, but it will be very mainstream. I think keep going out.
Can I ask something?
Yes.
Move the mouse.
In terms of democratization,
Yes.
do you think it's maybe not that an aspect of how accessible are devices, but rather what kind of new democratic or new social interaction forms technology can provide in order to eliminate the segregation between the various groups, or personalities or nationalities, or this kind of thing?
Yeah. So in this sense of obviously there's a lot of things that technology then becomes accessible to everything, and everyone has access to it. So
I think that's one of the kind of crucial things to understand, that the social innovation is falling behind of the technological innovation. So we don't have new forms of governance, new forms of the social sort of monitoring or interaction or participation or so on and so forth. And if there is technology that would kind of provide that, but human, consciousness is not able to really take it all and scale it in the masses.
Yeah, and I would say that's one of the biggest problems, because we have a harder time to catch up. Obviously we are linear, and we are having to learn a lot very quickly, and so I think people have a hard time changing. But people are getting, we're adapting. There was one graph of how long it took for most people to have TVs and then smartphones. But yeah, I think the thing is, as more people talk and decide and think about, new systems and new ways to use technology, that can help.
Yeah, but I'd say that's a tricky point, because of all the big corporations or influencers in the world that can actually use it from, different perspective, and actually create the democratization in a way, the opposite processes, by actually involving, in that kind of technological substance.
Yeah, well, technology is neutral, and actually, hopefully, we will go to, I don't know what's happening. All right, just a few times. Okay.
Action is needed.
Basically, yeah, that's actually we could have a whole meetup just on that, because I think, yeah, it's a very important thing that we could either have like Big Brother or like a very interesting, there's one example of Star Trek versus Star Wars, the evil empire or the abundance mentality. And technology is neutral, but humans, we have to discuss these things, and that's why people need to understand, because if it's in the wrong hands, that's, well, it can be a tool of control. Yeah, oh, sorry. So we're now running a bit late. But so I will just quickly run through. We don't have a lot of time because I know we need to get going. But so basically a big thing will be, of course, artificial intelligence, intelligent systems. So everything around us, we'll have autonomous vehicles, cars, drones, Internet of Things, our homes, our offices, our schools will be smart. Our clothing will be smart, our cities will be smart. There will be so much intelligence around us. Our technology will know us better than we know ourselves, but we'll also know ourselves through technology. So there's a lot of big, serious issues here in terms of privacy, security, hacking, but this is where we will go. And of course, artificial intelligence is going to be a huge thing, and that will change. That's a very interesting, but yeah, all of that will feed into artificial intelligence, and everything will continue to get smarter and smarter. Digital communities here, so I'm from the US, but I'm also an e-resident of Estonia. So I was actually at the e-residency hackathon. It was the first government first government hackathon initiative. They were calling it the first government startup. But they are trying to create this digital nation. There are other digital nations, but this here, is something that, we could have entire digital communities, that trade with currencies, smart contracts, they self-govern, they have their own system. So in my team, we have a guy from Ukraine, from China, Poland, then we have two from Estonia, and me and another Americans. All of us from different nationalities, but we're all e-residents. And so this is like, in the future we could have very different, maybe we won't have countries, I don't know. We have entire new opportunities for how to govern and interact with each other. Digital creation. So here is a really cool thing of a disabled girl 3D printed her, she has a 3D printed hand. We have a woman creating prototype in augmented reality. So this is, a very interesting field. We will have 3D printing will change manufacturing. It's going to be huge, and not a lot of people don't think about all this stuff. But it's also a tool of personal. For the first time, we individuals will have the power of manufacturing in our own hands. And VR will also be able to see perspectives from different genders, different races. It creates a much different perspective and point of view of the world. In robotics, we will be creating robotics, we will co-create with them. So there's a lot of really interesting things we can do in that field. And also, this is engineering, biology, our entire bodies also will become programmable. We will perhaps merge, some will have part human, part synthetic bodies, CRISPR, gene editing. This is really powerful stuff. And then we probably in the next couple of decades will become a multi-planetary species, humans on Mars by 2030. That's going to be amazing. So they're in now, but I will now do I didn't get to finish anything, but I just want to show the power of ideas. And 100 years ago, 1917, this is the New York suffrage parade. The women 100 years ago, didn't have the right to vote. 3 years later, they did. But imagine 100 years what we've managed to achieve because a group of women decided, hey, we want to be able to vote and have a say in society. We want to be able to educate ourselves. We want to be able to create and actualize our ideas. And so thanks to some very brave and courageous women, we have a lot of opportunities. And so basically, the next 100 years, we have now like the Industrial Revolution where women didn't have the vote. We couldn't help create that, but we have something even more powerful, which is coming up now. And so this is why I encourage all women to start and build the technology and companies of tomorrow, because that will. And so, so yeah, here's some very interesting books for visionaries. These are 6 books that have, I read about 50 books a year. These 6 in the past 2 years are books I've read and loved and have really changed a lot of my thinking. So yeah, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And we have a very wonderful woman. She is the CTO and founder of Biocarbon Engineering. She's a nanotech engineer and a drone pilot, and she is doing amazing things for the future. So please give a warm welcome to Dr.
Awesome. Well, it is certainly super to be here in a room filled with people just like you, because this is not usually the makeup of rooms that I speak in, or work in, or do anything in. So it's certainly a privilege to be here. When I was 5 years old, on my first day of school, my mum walked me down the driveway, and before we got to the end, she knelt down and said, "Susan, this is the year that counts." Heavy hitting for a 5-year-old. So I walked to school that day thinking, this is the year that counts. This is the year that counts. First day of school, very important. Now, the next year when I was 6, first day of school, same thing. My mum walked me down the driveway before we got to the end. She knelt down and said, "Susan, this is the year that counts. You're going to be meeting more people. You're going to be learning new things. This is the year that counts." And so that day I thought, this is the year that counts. This is the one. This is it. And she said that every single year, to the point that I am now telling you guys. And this message is something that drives me. That every year, every week, every day, it counts. And even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment, you can reflect back on it and then you think, oh, wow, that conversation or that lesson that I learned was so important right now. So this is the year that counts. Now, my first business actually was in cattle. At the age of 14, I got given a cow. It was actually a steer, it was a male cow. And I thought, what am I going to do with this cow? I thought, let's start a business. And the reason I say business and not entrepreneurship is because the way I define entrepreneurship is that you have something new, a new product, or a new market, or a new way to get your product or service to that market. Whereas business, it's a same product, same market, known route to market. So as an example, if you set up a flower store on the high street and sell to adults, that's small business. If you set up a genetically modified flower that responds to your facial reactions and sell it online to babies, that's entrepreneurship, right? We're creating something new. We're creating something for the future. And so my lessons from this small business, and I've started a couple of ventures between then and now. I also studied mechanical engineering and medical science, and then did my PhD in nanotechnology for cancer therapeutics. You're probably thinking, wow, these are all completely different things. Why on earth did she do these things? But all the lessons come together for me. And so where I am now at Biocarbon Engineering, we looked at the challenge of deforestation. Every single year, there are billions of trees that get cut down. And each year, the world spends billions of dollars planting billions of trees. But we still have a net loss of around 6 billion trees globally. This is devastating. And we think, why? Why do we have this loss of trees? And it turns out, the best technology that we have to plant trees is hand planting, where you literally have a bag of saplings and you go step by step and plant a tree. It is very slow, it is very expensive. And we thought, this can't be how can we solve this? We've got all of these emerging technologies, everything that Laurel just mentioned. We've got robotics, we've got AI, we've got remote sensing. How can we put these together to solve this problem? And what we came up with was to use drones to plant trees. So the way it works, first we fly over the land with a fixed-wing drone and take detailed images of the land. What this gives us is information about the topology, the soil, as well as the growth of the plants on top. We use that information to create a detailed planting pattern. And this can then be uploaded into our multi-rotor planting drone, which then flies at between 2 to 7 meters above the ground and fires a biodegradable seed pod into the soil. The pod can then penetrate the soil. It's biodegradable, so it degrades with moisture in the soil or with rain, and then contains all the nutrients to support the germination and growth of that tree. And by using this system, because it's so scalable, with 150 teams of just 2 operators operating 6 drones, we can plant 1 billion trees a year. We can actually have an impact on the Earth's atmosphere and everybody who lives here. So just to give you an idea of where we're operating, this is me and one of our chief drone pilots. And what we're doing is flying our planting drones in the field. So what you can do is automate this and put in a planting pattern so that it can fire into particular locations. And what we're seeing with this technology at the moment, it is still emerging. It hasn't yet quite emerged. So, we are still integrating components, putting in different electronics and sensors and what have you. And this has the advantage because it means that we can test new sensors and we can and play around with them, integrate them, and actually make changes rapidly. But it also has the downside in that it's not standard. There's nothing that you can really get off the shelf today at an industrial level, and it just works plug and play out of the box. And so we've been testing this in lots of different environments. This is our bucket challenge for flying RC. And really been pushing the extent to which this technology can operate. What are the limits of drones? And so where we see this going is that we can use it to create a brighter future. Now before I go into the details of drones, I just want to discuss one of the concepts that got described to me by George Kemble. He was the founder of the D School, the design school at Stanford. And has anybody heard of Kairos and Chronos time? Okay, so, oh, awesome, one person, cool. So, Chronos time is the time most of us work on. Chronos time is regular, it's week by week, it's month by month, year by year. And so when you want to get something done, it has a due date, and you get it done. Kairos time is a lot more dynamic. So the way I think of this is you've got 2 surfers. They're sitting out the back in the ocean and they both want to get to shore. The Chronos time surfer starts paddling, right, towards shore. The Kairos time surfer waits and sits there and watches. And what she's watching for is a really big wave. And she waits for that wave, catches it, and rides it effortlessly into shore. And so, as an entrepreneur, one of our most valuable resources is our own energy. And you've got to manage that energy. And so, operating on Kairos time instead of Chronos time is what you've got to do. And so, coming to these types of events and seeing these trends, where is the technology? Where is the market? And when are they going to collide? And I want to be there at that time so that I'm ready for it. So, talking about these trends, what are the trends in drones today? One of them is actually hilarious. I am a drone pilot. That is ridiculous. Drones are meant to be autonomous. There's meant to be no pilot. This is outrageous. So most of the drones today are piloted. They are remote control, or RC. When you see someone out there filming illegally because of the legislation, what they're actually doing is they're controlling the throttle, the yaw, the roll. They've got full control over the drone. There's slight auto-stabilization features, but generally they've got full control over the drone. Where that's moving to rapidly is automation. And automation is quite similar because you've still got a pilot who dictates exactly where that drone is going to be, and then presses upload and sends it off. You've still got the ability to go back to RC if something goes wrong, but at least you've got a fly-by-waypoints plan. But where this is actually moving is to autonomous mode. And that is where you don't tell it exactly what to do, you just tell it the outcome. So you say, I want to achieve this outcome, go and do it however best you can. So for example, if you were a wedding photographer, you would say something like, follow the bride and groom, and whenever anybody laughs, zoom in on their face, right? This is totally doable. We've got face recognition, a lot of it is open source even, so you could definitely do this today. And this is where the market is going. So if you're going to develop for drones, don't develop the next cool, RC thing, because the market is flooded. Move towards autonomous. Think about something that is really hard for a human to do, but which AI makes it super simple, and do that thing. So then, just more on drones and the categories. What we've got is fixed wing and multi-rotor. They're the main categories. You've got VTOL in the middle, which is vertical takeoff and landing. But basically, fixed wing is great for covering large areas. The flight time is generally better, so if you want to get a large area, and whether that's for civilian use or military use, that's what fixed wing drones do. And then you've got multi-rotor. You've got these $8 cheapos that you can buy. That includes shipping, so I don't know how people make a profit from that. And then you've got things like ours, which are a little bit bigger. And within these, I just wanted to give you a feel of some of the advantages and disadvantages. Some of the really great things about drones today is the software. So there's a lot of open source as well as closed source. Closed source being much more simple, open source being a lot more able to be modified. So that's really helpful if you're developing for drones. So Pixhawk is the main one. It's based on Arducopter, which is an open source community. And you've also then got readily available cheap electronic components. The motors are a bit more expensive, but other than that, you can build your own drone relatively easily today. One of the disadvantages, which covers both of them, is batteries. Complete disaster. Most drones are operated with LiPo batteries. LiPo batteries, as you might have figured out from the media with different plane crashes and things, are inherently unstable. So when you're charging them, using them, or if you have a crash, they can just spontaneously catch on fire. And they produce their own oxygen, so you can't put it out. This is not a great thing to have as part of your business. Makes it a little bit hard to manage the risk. It also means that you can't transport them. So the limit to transport batteries internationally at the moment is around 100 watt hours. 100 watt hours is not going to make that take off. This is flying on like 500, 600 watt hour batteries. These ones are running on like, 2 watt hours or something. But basically, if you want to do some serious drone engineering and operate internationally, you cannot transport the batteries. They are dangerous goods. It's very expensive, it's a real pain. So these are just some of the things to think of when you're starting a drone business. And when you look at the areas that drones are being used in, they're being used in all sorts of areas, from agriculture to emergency services to healthcare, delivery to real estate to infrastructure monitoring. But when you look at all of these, the thing in common they have, they're all just taking a photo. So the majority of what is happening out there right now is taking a photo or a video and doing something fancy with that. That is where the vast majority of all drone pilots, drone operators, drone manufacturers, drone software is all taking a photo. And where we think that it's going, because we're creating the future, is aerial robotics. And so you've got us planting trees, you've got other groups doing like window cleaning, and then you've got this big bracket of parcel delivery. And so where these trends are heading towards is actionable information, not just information. So I've talked a lot about drones, and I just want to talk about impact. For me, technology isn't anything unless you can have impact with it. What's the point of the next new app that might make you a lot of money if you can't actually have impact with that app? And so when I think about impact, a lot of it has been shaped by my experience a couple of years ago at Singularity University, which was actually started by Peter Diamandis, who created the 60s that Laurel was talking about. And it's not a university, and it's not really about singularity, but nevertheless, that is its name. It's based at the NASA Ames research site, and so you get to put a fancy NASA logo on your computer. And everything that it is about is a billion. Right? They set the challenge to everybody who goes there to positively impact the lives of 1 billion people within the next 10 years. Now, I have to admit, before I went there, I didn't actually think on that scale that I could help 1 billion people. But in fact, it's not that you can, it's that you ought to. Because there are challenges today that impact the lives of billions of people. This is not something that we just can do, it's something we should do. And when you accept that, when you say, okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is positively impact the lives of 1 billion people, I've committed to that, how on earth am I going to do it? And that's where emerging technologies come in. That's where using all of these trends and watching for the trends enables you to impact 1 billion people. And when you then say, okay, sure, but why don't we get a big company to do that? Surely a big company would be better suited to impact the lives of 1 billion people rather than me and the person sitting next to me who's just created this startup over coffee. Well, a big company, this is learning, right? A big company knows a lot. They have a lot of resources, they have a lot of people, they have a lot of experience, they've got a lot of money. A small company, or it might just be you and the person sitting next to you at this moment, knows very little. You have no resources, you have no people, you have no experience, you've got no money. But you learn very quickly. And if you can keep learning that quickly, you will overtake that big company. And you then are the one that is going to impact the lives of 1 billion people. And one of my favorite quotes is from Tom Chi. He's one of our advisors. He was a co-founder of Google X, and started the driverless car and Google Glass. And he says, doing is the best kind of thinking. I love this philosophy. That is the way that you start companies. It's the way you turn ideas from that thing that you wish that you had done to that thing that you're doing right now. And sometimes people say, well, doing is the best kind of thinking, but I don't really think it's going to work. You know, you just told me this idea, and like there are laws against it, and the technology doesn't really exist, and it's going to be really expensive. A lot of people think like this. It's sort of a natural way of thinking in many parts of the world, but the Silicon Valley philosophy, and one which permeates the entrepreneurial communities, is this yes and. Yes and. So you tell me a bad idea, and I say, yes, and we could do this with it. And then you say, yes, and we could do that with it. And then before you know it, you've got to this amazing idea that started from a very bad idea. But it could have just died right there. Someone tells you a bad idea and you say, nah, it's not going to work. And then there's this like really awkward silence, and that's the end of the conversation, and then you all go home, and then what have you. But if you say yes and, then you'll never know where it'll go unless you explore that. And usually it goes somewhere pretty interesting. I'm going to just skip some of these because I don't think I have time.
Don't skip.
Don't skip. I'm going to go back. Okay. So one of the other startups that I started was called Paired. It was tech for the elderly. Think Apple, but older. And our philosophy was age with attitude, right? So much of the technology today is designed for and by the 21-year-old male, right? And we have left out an enormous population that is a growing community of people who feel like they know that they've been left out. And this partly is leading to social isolation. Social isolation leads to a whole lot of health effects. And so what we decided was, come on, we've got all of these, miniaturization of sensors, we've got these really cool design concepts and 3D printing that will help us get there. We're going to create technology specifically for the 55 plus. And the team that we formed was, I've got to say, an awesome team. It was a beautiful thing. So it was myself, it was an investment banker, it was a social entrepreneur, and a comedian. Perfect way to start a joke. But this was no joke, we took it very seriously. And what I think made this team so good was the diversity. We had complete diversity of ideas, of experiences. I had never met a comedian before. I didn't even know, I was like, why would you work with a comedian? And it really meant that every day we would break our ideas. People would come in and say, no, we're pulling it all apart. I don't think we can do it this way, so we're gonna do it a different way. Or we would approach things differently. And diversity is one of those things which I believe ultimately builds strength. It builds a better product, it builds a better team. But it's also something that builds tensions. You can get really angry at people because you're like, why do you not understand what I'm saying? I don't know why you're telling me this. And for weeks you can think, what are you doing? But when you resolve it, I ultimately think that diversity builds strength. And another point I want to say is that when we are developing technology, and this comes back to one of the points that was made earlier, you've got to have real empathy because you have a lot of power in your hand. You are all tech girls and guys. You can create the future. So what future are you going to create? You need to have empathy. And this concept is one of Tom Shee's, which is when you first meet someone, any one of you, I could say, I know literally nothing about you. And so if you ask a question, I'll ask a question, and based on your answer, the half that I know less about, I'll ask another question. And so I know a little bit more. And then the half of that answer that I know least about, I'll ask another question, and another question, until I get a pretty good picture of your world. And when you're developing technology, let's say you came up with this great idea. I'm going to create an app for facial recognition so that I can understand your emotions so that I can target advertising. Yeah, great new app. Somebody pitched that to me, and so that's why I'm using it. Because I thought, I don't know that fits in with my world. I kind of like my privacy. And so for that, it would have been out here. It just does not overlap with my world. So why on earth was he pitching it to me, right? Whereas if you then came up and you said, okay, from what I hear, my solution or my team or my whatever it is fully overlaps. This is what it is. And if it half overlaps, you just say, well, it looks like this whole half of my product, team, solution, whatever it is, doesn't fit into your world, but this one does. And I'm gonna tell you about that. And so I think it's really important when we develop technology that we have real empathy and that we ask questions. We don't assume what our customer or our market or our investor wants. We ask them first for it. Now I want to leave you on a quote. It came from the Unreasonable Impact Group. So we were invited to be Unreasonable Fellows. It's an entrepreneurship group. And the reason, the way that they got their name is from a quote from George Bernard Shaw. And the quote went something like, the reasonable woman adapts herself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in adapting the world to herself. And all future progress depends on the unreasonable woman. And so I encourage you all to be unreasonable women and to have the impact on the world that you want to have. And I believe in you, that you can do it. So I'll leave you with my mum's story, that this is the year that counts, and I wish you all the best success in whatever you end up doing.
And it was example with the drones that it can fly to, let's say, vending machine, and if the owner has paid for the delivery, it's controlled by blockchain, and then the drone would dispatch that delivery. Can you expand a little bit if this is reality already or it's a fantasy?
So the concept of drone delivery is a reality today. There have been several drone deliveries that have taken place. The first commercial one was some popcorn and a DVD in Cambridge, but it was all over private land. And then you've got a lot of aid organizations, humanitarian organizations. So Matinet was the first drone delivery company, and then came Amazon, if you want to know the chronological order of that. And Matinet started with aid emergency supplies like blood liquids or medicines and things, where, especially where you've just had a muddy, flooded road in an already fairly inaccessible area to be able to make those transports. So the concept of delivering a package is well developed and is being used fairly regularly, especially in developing countries. The practicality of it going to a vending machine and then taking it to your house, I personally think is not so practical, partly because of the regulations, and not because the regulations are too tight, but because they make sense. Flying over people's heads or like crashing into their heads, it's important to not have those. And so I think that where most of drone technology is going to be developed is in remote areas, which is good for us because where we plant trees is generally away from people. So drone package delivery for the last mile problem, which is what Amazon has, most of their, well, a large proportion of their cost in delivering you your DVD or your popcorn is that last mile to get it to your house. And that's why they wanted drones. But the actual reality of it in a city is still their biggest challenge. If you live in the country, no worries, that'll be pretty easy. But it's still a little way off for social and regulatory reasons. Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question about the stage, actually, where are you now? So if you could just explain a little bit about accuracy, what can you get out of the machine vision and all of the things that you're doing right now, so where exactly you're at, and how big is the error rate? So really making the plant between the rock and all the other
absolutely. So all positioning systems, and please tell me when I should, all positioning systems, so in your car, your GPS or GNSS is going to be up to 5, sometimes 10 meters accuracy, which is okay if it has a given knowledge of where you should be, i.e. the road. So it generally assumes you're on the road when you're driving. But RTK GPS is what, so real-time kinematic GPS is what brings that positioning down closer to 10 centimeters. And so that's knowledge of where you are in space. You can also then use visual systems or ultrasound or laser to improve that accuracy of knowledge where you are in space. Once you've got the knowledge of where your car, drone, underwater drone is in space, you then have to achieve that accuracy. So that's your second step. And then if you're delivering a parcel or you're firing a seed pod or doing something, you've then got to have that accuracy. So there's sort of a 3-step accuracy. And so where we are currently is between the meters to centimeters in actual hold positions. So we can hold at 7 meters above the ground exactly, plus or minus about 20 centimeters. And this is quite important when you're having to go up and over big logs and rocks and things that are unknowns, because we can't really see it over a large area. And so that's quite important. And so the technology, I think its limits, given the ability to hover, especially if you want to move and at the same time, so you don't really want to spend too much time hovering, is going to be limited to around 10 centimeters. And then you have to use visual-based systems to improve on that. So that's where we're moving towards.
In addition to this, isn't it a bit of over-engineering for this application?
In some places, absolutely. So in some places, we don't use any of those systems. We just go hell for leather. But in other applications, the cost of seed is so high. And it's not just the cost, it's that we actually don't have enough seed on Earth to just spread it out of a helicopter, right? Because the seeds die. So we don't have enough seeds on Earth to reforest Earth just by using low success rates. We have to get higher success rates than just dropping them randomly and letting some drop on a rock and some on a log and some on the road and what have you. And so in some applications where you've got well-prepared land, sure. Why do you need a 10 centimeter accuracy?
Like all the convenient seeding ways also fail pretty big time. With, I have put my own forest, and, and so even with like hand-picked saplings and such things, which are not just seeds, which are already sacked. Like still, you have to after a couple of years go and reseed this area.
Exactly. Right. So you need to give it the best chance that you can. And given that algorithms, once you've developed them, don't complain about their work hours, you may as well do it because the upfront cost. So yes, in some cases it's over engineering, in others probably hit the sweet spot.
All right, I guess we'll have a last question, and then we'll have a short break. You had a question?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about the efficiency of planting these seeds, and I suppose that it would be more efficient if you would have a chance to fly several drones in parallel. So you
can come work for us. So we're moving towards swarm.
For example, just the practicality is that you one drone flies and you plant the seed, and then the next one flies next to it. So you have to kind of make sure you don't the seeds are also apart, 20. So 30 so on centimeters.
Yeah. So
you don't plant it just next to each other, or then it's not and also just this aspect, and also that you have a chance to fly several ones.
Yeah. So this is another trend that you've correctly identified, which is swarm. And that's where you have drone management systems where they operate in a fleet, either with prior knowledge of where they will be, and so they can plant or fly or deliver packages appropriately. And then they have sense and avoid and other information, so they can do battery management and say, oh, I need to charge now, so can you stay out in the field? Basically, that type of conversation between the drones. And so what we're moving towards is 6 drones flying at a time, operating, getting seed pods and batteries. And so at the moment our capacity is about 110 pods. We're moving towards 300 pods per flight. And so what that means is they go out, they'll go bang, 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 they'll fly, and then they'll come back. And then what the pilot is doing is recharging batteries, recharging pods, out they go again. And that requires what's called fleet management. So they have awareness of where they are. And so being able to use swarm in ideas, if you're having ideas, swarm is quite cool because you can scale without having to scale the effort involved too much. Yeah.
Actually, don't go far. Come back, please. We'll have now a short break, 10 minutes, but before that, I have a small announcement. So, Riga TechGirls and Tele 2 Shirt Service Center, we are kicking off exciting tradition of giving one book recommended by one of our speakers to some women from the audience. And so to do that, to get the book, you just come here and you leave your information on those notes, and you will be able to win in a raffle, which we'll make after the second speaker.
Self-awareness and grow personally. And Gunita is going to talk to us about how our personal growth is related to our company's growth. So please welcome Gunita. She's the CEO and founder of Vividly, and she will talk about the company as you.
Thank you. Okay. Firstly, I'm really glad to be to speak in this audience, and every time I have to, hold a speech of any kind, I feel very responsible of what I'm saying and how do I deliver the message. And then, recently, I came to the point that talking about technology as such is actually not the main value that you can take out from the whole as a startup experience. Of course, that's a kind of a perspective added to what you do and how you think about it. But recently, I found out that the main motivation and the driver, which kind of is firing me up, is the self-development that I can improve myself through the growing business, and understanding that there is a really kind of a very close a very direct bridge from one to another. And as far as you invest in yourself, you see the progress also reflecting in the company or in the venture that you do, in the idea that you develop, in the project that you do. And I think this was the crucial point as well in kind of my life, and saying like, hey, this is the time at my 25th. I want to do it, and I want to maximize the value, and this is my decision. I want to go. I want to do everything that it takes to actually go for that decision. And of course, one of like biggest kind of fears, right? The risk of basically losing something that you had before, or losing that. I don't know even how to employ. Maybe you can become an architect and all of this gratitude and everything like this position, kind of elite, whatever it has been considered. Architects consider themselves as well in this way. I kind of risk that, and or I risk my kind of a daily job, or risk my career path where I could gradually increase my income and so on and so forth. But I kind of just decided to look at it from a totally different point of view. And again, coming back to what I decided what my personality is, to take up this challenge and see that in the challenge you have that excitement, you have that drive, you have that passion. Because through that challenge, through that risk in a way, I kind of learn how I can take new steps and what kind of other tools and skill set do I have in order to see the world wider. I think this as well was a very interesting point of, and what I try to as well suggest my friends who are, there's so many people actually coming to these kind of events, to the conferences, and like lately I heard the term that we call like seminar junkies or meetup junkies. They just kind of all the time need that feed of kind of inspiration, but they don't know how to practically like get it in, because they can't overcome this kind of risk or the fear of losing something. They can't look at the risk from a different point of view. Yeah, and this is where I resonate the most, like the team and the partners, because you alone, you can't. Yeah, well, that's you can't just do things. You can't impact as much as you could do if you have the people around you. And at very first steps and first months, basically, I still kept that kind of leadership position of trying to delegate the tasks, directions, orientate people, and maybe strategically kind of shape them in. But my aim since very early was to basically change the perception of the leadership and be as a leader that is on the back, that can actually give and initiate the change, the ideas, the processes, but it's not like leading a company or the ideas as such, not like directing them, but rather facilitating them. So how I see as well the company as such is at the first place, it is a place where personalities can grow. Because nowadays in the business, in this whole environment, there is nothing much more than people who work there, people who are spending their time, their lives, sacrificing at the same time a lot of their other opportunities, and giving it to the vividly in this case. So I feel that me as a platform facilitator have to give them all the resources, all the options that they could be able to create and fulfill their personal growth as well. So it's not just they work for Vividly or for whatever other venture in the sake of creating this value for society, but they also work within this environment on this platform in order to develop themselves. So that when they leave the Vividly or they just decide other parts of the life, they feel like they have been enriched. Even I was just thinking, I think yesterday, that when the Vividly establishes majors as a company, I would like to do one day that is paid by the company, where just employee can take the day off and do whatever other thing he's doing in order to learn. go whatever, bouldering or do some other sports, but you bring that knowledge and that perception back to the company, explain others. So you have that self-development day where you can grow and bring that growth back into the environment where we are sharing and where we are helping each other to grow. And just right after then, it comes the client and the product as such. Because this life and work balance is some kind of a quiz for me, I think, as well. And I think in the future it's gonna, the barriers or the borders will eliminate in the race completely. So it is very, very important for to ensure that people on this platform being able to become better persons in this context. And our team, again, like since very early, I've been saying that, yeah, we need as different opinions, as different nationalities, as different perspectives, because this difference is actually creating the value for your company. Because I've never thought that you could look on this feature that we are having from totally different perspective, because your cultural background, your national background, your family background is totally different than mine or the others. So we are really embracing the difference and embracing the sharing in that context. Basically, technology is not the purpose at all, because the purpose is to really create the value out of it in that whole combination of elements and a combination of the aspects. But I was asked a little bit to put in as well some VR side of it. So what mostly this technology that we are working with is virtual reality. Is proposing, like especially in architecture, real estate, urban planning, construction industry, is that there's a really practical tool of like making decisions, saving the cost, simulating different kind of experiences, simulating different kind of construction operations, and so on and so forth. So basically, all the solutions are playing with the rationale of the VR, trying to copy what could be possible in the reality, but just doing it the little before and cutting the cost of it. What we are really trying to do is make that virtual experience, the virtual reality experience, juicy and accessible in the same time. How do we do that? Is that we understood that we started with this rationale, so the basis, the foundation has to be there still, but what we would like to work with, what would add the value, is because this VR medium allows you to get a total new perspective to how the things work, and it tackles directly the feelings, the emotions, the experiences, the memories and the stories. So it is a kind of a new kind of a level of how we perceive and how we see and how we feel things. And also in architecture and design, why architecture and design has to be flat in a virtual reality? Why it has to be even real? If the VR as a medium allows you to kind of extend your experiences. And we know from kind of marketing trends and where is the kind of a world going, each design object, each building has a story. Every architect, every artist is trying to create a story with its creation. And so we just decided that how could we make it more accessible, because mostly these old solutions are available by just putting a lot of work, as more hours you put into the designing and rendering the objects, as more kind of creative it is. We are building something that we call, could be called as Instagram filter for virtual reality medium. So whenever you upload the 3D model, and it's all web-based, so you don't have one or another track of device. Whenever you upload your model, you're able to select the style or mood or narrative, you call it whatever, and you have an output on all the devices, which are starting from the mobile phone ending up with all the Oculuses and HTC Vives or any others. And we can do that because we are like based on the web. So some sort of thing that you can call like metaverse as such. So when you can jump, you can just scroll down, your web, and you can jump from experience to experience. There's again a lot of like privacy stuff, and I kind of resonate when you said about these ads, apps, whatever. And I got pitched just in Berlin and in one of the places with an application that that would bring ads into your experiences. And I was like, man, would you like to see the VR as such? And I was like, we have ability to create just amazing things here without ads and without this commercial kind of influence. You can't just copy what is now like in the 2D web digital and put it into VR. Are you conscious? Because that's like you basically directly tackle the human perception. You just plant that information into the head, and like I wouldn't like to see that. And I was like really getting into discussion, and the guy was like, well, yeah, you're kind of right. Yeah, but that's your startup. Why are you doing that? Like, what's the value? But I think that's what differs us sometimes. That we are looking at like we can look really clearly on the things. Like, how do you emotionally feel attached or disattached? What would you like to see the world like that? And I'd say that in VR, there's I'm also a proud representative of women in VR in the global movement, and we are discussing that a lot. And in VR scene as such, there's so much of the women, and that's really amazing. Actually, we have had so much of these discussions, empathy in the VR, and like the value creation in the VR, and all the perceptual models, and so on and so forth. And I must say that, there's just a quick statistic. So there's 20% less women actually tried the VR in the UK than the guys. And I'd say then it's not just because we are women and we have like a different standards or something like that, but just because we haven't found out the entry to the VR as such. And the same applies to the older people, who are not like, I have to put something on my head, but feel like, imagine like you're just passing in the like a mall, there's a stand of the VR. You have your kid, you have your purse, you have your whatever, the shopping bags, and then somebody just put on the glasses and you and says like, yeah, you're totally immersed in different world. Like you can imagine, like you have no control over the situation, so on and so forth. And also for the old people, the same thing. And so we have to figure out the way how people feel comfortable in that experience. Okay. Yeah. Right. So we see the Vividly as sort of a brand signature in the VR medium. Later on, it can develop to the other brands, marketeers, other designers, and we would like to allow every designer, every marketeer to tell a story, immersive story around his or her product, which would, emotionally relate to their customer. Yeah. So, and getting back to the company thing, how I see that, how I saw it from the very first, is that your client is your first investor, and is best investor. And we also get like within the first month, I got like the first. I knocked on all the doors and got the first client, and learned how to actually work with that, and where is the product in one or another way building. We're still building it, we're still searching for it, but there's just like a learning curve, I guess. But being able to get to that first client is very crucial. And then the mindset of yourself. Think about your hours, your input, your milestones as you would be investing in this venture where you are kind of a part of, and you're the first investor into that. And how would you, developing this mindset allows you to understand how investors look at you as well when you're developing your company. And this is my favorite. There's nothing to lose, ladies and gentlemen. You can win or you can learn, or sometimes there's drift guys that are saying just you learn or you learn, and actually that's the thing. And I can't imagine any other, you know, circumstances or setting where I could learn as much as I have learned from building a company, building a startup. About myself, about world, about technologies, about whatever, everything, and developing this analytical skills. It's not possible to get a degree on that, and we have quite a lot of like architectural students approaching us, working with us in one or another project, and when I we have this like personal one-to-one discussion, and I'm saying like what you're looking for, like what you would like to do in the future, how do you see yourself, and like what's your goal, what's your why, you know, in the world. They're saying, hey, no, I'm gonna finish studies, then I'm gonna go for a master, then I'm gonna slave for some architect, head architect for 3 years, and yeah, then I'm gonna do this idea. But then, like, why are you waiting for that? It's like everything is now here. You're wasting your best years, you know, your power years just by like following by some standards, getting those, you know, kind of badges. Because it's like if you want to do really something enough, you just start now, you know, and just do it. And I understand why in architecture it's very like the mindset that you have to become an architect first place, or you have to, you know, reach those levels of appreciation whenever, I don't know, and then you're gonna do good for the world. Like, start now, start do things. And yeah, that's my messaging. Later on, I'm actually going to put the demo on, and you'll be able to see the VR. I would say that, you know, it's very hard to talk about the VR as such. It's like dancing about architecture. Yeah, it's just you have to see it, you have to immerse yourself to try it out, and then you can have an idea how it really feels. No videos, no pictures, no images. Fortunately, can't really give you an understanding. Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, industry-wise. So now, basically the company has 2 tracks now. There's a service side and there's like product side. Product side is oriented with the new generation architects, designers, later on also brand marketeers when like the kind of awareness grows. And the service side, we actually work with very impressive brands in the Baltics, in Nordics, that include companies that are related with real estate, new developments, construction, like for example banks, even banks, you know, they have some ideas how they want to make people to aware what is their, you know, kind of investment portfolio or whatever. And what we are doing in the service side, we are actually helping them to strengthen their brand via these immersive experiences. So when they approach us, they say, hey, we want to do something in the VR, like give us an Oculus experience. And then we are just like, no, wait. Like, what's the why? What's the purpose? Like, and then we figure out like how to communicate about that, like how the user could really, you know, get that message. And then we custom like the technology as such. It's not always you need like Oculuses in the lobby and like, yeah, check, I'm innovative and I have virtual reality. It's more about the perception, the way you look at it as a user experience for long term, you know, and how you integrate that. So that's our kind of a service profile, which we're really good at because the team is composed from like me covering this architectural, urban planning, construction perspective, and my 2 partners, which one of them is brand strategist, been working with very big brands in the Nordics, and another is immersive technology. So we're able to combine this in a very like kind of a good matchmake on really sharing the values of the VR. And I'd say that all our clients, whether in the product side or in the service side, are also like-minded. So they embrace the technology towards a kind of a progress. They are not afraid to experiment, and they value their customers a lot. And we pick those brands to work with that would relate to our brand as well. So together we make a strong sort of, whatever, any project is a really good representation of how we see the world in general.
So
So my question would be, I think so for the more local community, because I believe you're very inspirational young ladies actually who build the companies. So, and my job environment actually today pushed me to meet the young IT savvy woman almost on everyday basis. And every second day actually I see the great concept, you know, I see the great girl actually, she has absolutely amazing idea. So basically like you, but they struggling a lot with the financing their ideas. So here maybe like in this environment, so how did you manage to finance your idea from scratch? And actually, what would be your advice on this particular aspect of the business?
So the first thing I said as well is like find your first client. Find in various combinations you can find somebody that is kind of ready to pay for that what you're ready to give. You know, but I'd say that in our case as well, the development of idea was as a process, and it actually we took part in Tallinn Architecture Biennale, which was that my curiosity and experimentation part, which I saw as a portal to experiment with architecture and technology as such, but didn't see myself yet as being the curator of a company. I just were interested in the spillovers and whether that's the kind of direction where the added value lays, and for the small economies such as Latvia could kind of raise the level and be potential. So, but whatever, when I decided that let's do a company, then the first was, okay, we have this built something. I just went to at that time, it was Great Amber, by the way, a concert hall, Great Amber. It was the newest building. It was considered to be okay architecture. Actually, it was a great case because it was already built, but there was a problem with functionality and arrangement of the space due to the budget, blah blah blah. A lot of issues, but that was the modern architecture. They had a foreign architect, which kind of at that time was recognized as our kind of profile of the client. No, it was Ginke, F. Ginke architect, so Austrian architect. And so we saw the relation, and we just knocked on their door. Hey, we have this technology. You have this building. Maybe we can make it together. And there were responsive people on that side. They said, "Yeah, this is amazing. It's awesome. You need that." And yeah, we have this problem of user experience in the building, and it's in Liepāja. So maybe we can bring this experience in Riga. They can walk through it, and we can make it as an interactive. They have like an embassy also in Riga. So and that's how we could use it as our marketing, blah blah blah. And that was a great case because they were already also to pay for that because there was an issue behind it and so on and so forth. And then it served as a great case for how virtual reality could actually help to avoid those mistakes that were already built in the building. So again, a little bit of lucky coincidence of that case in that time and like everything. But it gave us a kickstart money for actually setting up the arrangements of like this is a company officially, and then very purposefully I chose the sort of investors that I saw have the biggest kind of potential, and they were recognized as sort of the best very good for the startups where big communication. Incremental capital. Right? And I purposefully went for them and approached them like, this is what I want to do, this is how I want to see, I want to do it, and could you help me with that? So they gave the starting money. At that time still I was a leader, so I was kind of playing, one-man show a little bit. With the team, yes, but they were like, this whole discussions about what's going to be with the team, what is your personal why, again, and whether everyone in the team feels the same way. And and that money gave us a kickoff, and then we got like new clients, and starting to kind of see where we want to go as the architects, because the awareness about VR has increased a lot since the year. So all the presentations that I've made in the very early stage were actually explaining, why we are and what is that. Now I can go more into the values of what it can bring. It's not just like you immerse yourself into the building and everyone was like, wow, that's amazing, right? You can walk through it, oh my god. Now it's like, oh, you can play with this and that, and this can be web and this, and like all the features of like the medium. And then basically with that money we started to run. Very early I started to ping to the foreign markets abroad, because Riga, I didn't recognize it as like, kind of progressive in terms of construction industry and architecture, unfortunately. So there was no response. There was rather like, who needs VR? I have like pen and pencil, and that kind of things. And we're not that interested in efficiency and these whole like rationale arguments. Though the clients abroad were very interested, especially in the UK, where there's like basically in terms of architecture and construction, a lot of services afterwards are like exported as well. So 60% of like architects in London work abroad or have branch outs or so on and so forth. And I saw that as kind of a scalability factor. So whenever we will have that product at some point, that all the elements will come together, we will be able to scale. So going abroad, so choosing your players, again, it was in the context of the brand as well, because very early we started to work with the McCann Riga agency together with Overpriced and White Label to build the Vividly as a brand, as a standpoint, as a values. Because I had it all in me, but I couldn't fix it nicely into the old like frames. So they were super responsive and kind of empowered this process. And then go out and be where your market is. That's, I think, one of my learnings. So just go there and ping and see like what they are reacting and what's going on. And kind of think that you will have to they will have to pay in one or another way. So if you position yourself correctly, you usually get to that point when they're ready to pay. It's not like, oh, I have this technology. No, we have this technology. It's going to change your world. It's like how you sell it a little bit as well. So clients, choosing the partners, clients, and investors, basically that resonate to your values and to your company values and your brand. Sorry for the long answer.
We have time for one more question.
And I'm here afterwards, and you will see the VR. So which one is not the one? You? Yeah. So
I'm more interested in this technical part. You have this product, and for example, I have this architectural design on paper. How do we get from paper to the system? Are you doing that, or are you teaching somebody how to use this product?
Well, that's a big step though. But we don't go against the pen and paper, by the way. Maybe that was not clear. But usually in architecture, still, everyone tends to go to the digital systems, BIM, for example, building information modeling, where you have all the architectural, engineering, mechanical, structural things inside of like one model, more or less. And you're able to organize your design, construction, maintenance process in that. So for our clients, we have narrowed down that basically the ones who are already using at least the primary technology of 3D, have to be there. If you need to digitalize your sketches, you have to use any kind of software, 3D software, architectural software to make it happen. And then on our platform, you just use the model that you have created. We don't involve in your architecture or in your design. And you apply the styles, you play with that, you customize it if you need it, and you get an output. You share it on your portfolio or share it with your clients. Like you can use it in-house, and you can use it as your differentiation tool on your portfolio as well, which is quite big for young architects, for any kind of like small brand architects, because mostly this industry is like small, medium individuals, solo even.
But it is a different system though. It's not the same 3D system the architectures use.
No, like it's just the same 3D. No. So from 3D you have like common file formats where you just use the file formats and you work with that. We don't have any like clashes in that yet. We can integrate more and more if we need. there's even some apps now, like actually one of our mentors, they're allowing like digital sketch, and now they're allowing digital 3D sketch that turns it into OPJ as well. So like as a like an object, with surfaces. So basically, you would be able to sketch it. It turns into 3D. We just send it to Vividly, do stuff, get out on the VR or on the digital as well. It's a multi-device multi. Welcome to Combine the Mail, ping me, meet me. While I'm in Riga, I'm always responsive. I'm ready to share with the community.
All right, thank you so much, Gunita. For the feedback for tonight's meetup, and also make sure to follow our Facebook page where we post all our events, and we'll be having some more code workshops that we'll be announcing soon. All right, thank you very much, and I believe Gunita will give a demo, yes?
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm gonna just set it up here.
Okay.
All right, so basically the official part is over.
Yeah.
Let's enjoy some VR and
Demo.
snacks.
Space cubicles. That's Tagad tikko pabeidzām Astens expo.